Beginning of my video. Boom!
Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring Land.
Oh, just kidding.
Blasphemer!
Hello,
right.
Boring Review Nation!
Kind of pointless.
We know all things. It was over in a snap.
We really want it. Alright, we'll be nice.
Only you can be a Patreon.
Oh my gosh!
You don't need to follow the show to be hyped.
All right. Welcome.
Hello, Boring Review Nation!
This guy.
Board Review Nation, we need merchandise.
We have a guest here, and this guy's gonna play me like that.
Always gotta do it, man.
So we got Nick here.
Gabe.
Evan, we got Evan here.
I was gonna see what happened.
Like he knows that
I wasn't
happens.
expecting
That's
a
weird.
talk this early.
So Evan is new to Boring Reviews, but we're super excited to have him because he is a graduate of film school, correct?
Correct.
So he actually has more trained expertise than both of us combined.
Right.
No pressure. No pressure.
It was funny because when you asked him, hey, is this your first YouTube video? He's like, yeah, dude, I'm usually behind the camera. Like,
Yep, never really in front of it.
So he could tell us everything wrong we do. Like, Gabe, you don't look at the camera. You're always interrupted. You're off talent.
Usually you have one light behind us.
There you go. Light should be behind
The fill light, is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you tell the viewers exactly what you've been doing?
What it is I do?
Yeah.
Well, I work in the industry, the film industry. I work a lot of union shoots, which means you get paid more and you're protected. You have benefits too. I do a lot of production assistant work. Any way I can help the production team, I do it. And yeah. And I do script supervising too. It's a big jump if you know the positions in the industry.
Okay, I'm gonna pretend like I know what all that means.
Oh yeah, we're just sitting here.
It
oh,
sounds
yeah.
important. Like, all right, is that the script supervisor? I'm assuming that's the guy that actually reads the script because the actors
Yeah.
are too lazy to read the
I
script
have to know
themselves.
better than anyone else. They're like, oh,
Exactly.
forget the line, scripty. Gotta find the line, gotta find the piece of dialogue.
That's pretty cool. That's
Yep.
pretty cool. So you've read some scripts beforehand before anybody said. That's pretty cool.
Just make sure you don't leave them underneath your bed at the hotel. Or
The leak, they try and find it, it's all the way back to me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Blacklisted in Hollywood.
John Boyega's.
Well, when people get scripts, especially for big movies, right? Those are like it's like basically a playbook in football. Like you're responsible for that thing. If you lose it, you're probably gonna get fired or something like that, right?
Yeah, you would. But it's more of a playbook to the script supervisor because they break down schedules, they break down props, they break down set dressing, action, dialogue. So it's more of a playbook to them than anyone else. Because some actors don't even receive the full script, like in Marvel.
Right.
Yeah, they don't. Some of them don't get the whole.
Yeah, because they'll lose them.
They probably get it day to day, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you get day-to-day scripts. Yeah.
So I'm gonna scoot in a little bit so you get a little into the can. There we go. All right, so we're excited to have Evan here. He based out of California, right? But his family, his parents live here, so he's back and forth. So we're gonna try to get him on the channel as much as possible. But we're super excited because again, he's in the industry right now. He's young. Hopefully, when he starts making movies in about 10 or so years, he wants to ask Art David.
I know that guy.
Yeah.
I knew that guy before he was famous.
You saw him here first.
Remember what we said before? Like, man, listen, we're always talking about these actors. Like, why would you do this movie? They did it for the bag, all right? They did it for the cash. Like, you know what? I'd do it just to be in the movie. Like, I was Rock number 3. You know what I mean?
There I am. There I
Dude,
am.
if you need me for anything, I could be a stand-in. I could be a hobo. I have range. I'm telling you. Whatever you want me to do.
Just make sure you give him the lines because he won't be able to control himself. He won't be able to stay quiet.
You're acting too much with it, dude.
Well, I'll write a role specifically for you.
Oh, man. You don't have to give him a script. He'll be good to go.
Don't read the script. Script read me. Tropic Thunder.
Oh, that's a classic one. I love that movie.
All right, so we're going to get into this review. We all saw Parasite. I actually saw it with him. I work with his mom. We're good friends. And so he was in town. We checked it out. And Gabe watched it just a few days later. So we've all seen Parasite. We know it's came out. It's won a bunch of awards. But we were really interested, I know for myself, really interested to figure out what's all the hoopla.
Right.
So for me, it was my first Korean film. Was that your first Korean film?
That was my first Korean film.
What
I
about
saw
you?
in the theater.
Yeah, we did.
First Korean film as well, yes.
And we're going to jump right into it. We actually had a decent conversation about it afterwards or after the movie and then a few days later. And I thought, we got to get this on camera. And so it's going to be kind of a different type of review because we're going to have some expertise. We're going to have our introduction to Korean film. And I'm not sure if all Korean movies are this good, but if they are, holy cow, we're missing out. This movie starts off right out of the gate. For me, it's about a 2-hour, 25-minute movie. For me, right out of the gate, the first hour was extremely engaging. You get introduced to this family that is just, basically dirt poor. They have a dwelling, basically a basement, but parents are out of work. They're folding pizza boxes to make ends meet, and they get this opportunity where the son, he's about 18, 19 or so, maybe a little older.
Yeah,
He's
a
university
college
age.
age,
Yeah,
college.
university age. Not able to go to university for obvious reasons. He gets this opportunity to tutor this 15, 16-year-old girl from this rich family. And this movie starts off with that, and you get a little bit of background information, but the first hour is just so awesome. If you haven't seen it, we're going to have some spoilers in here, so be prepared for that.
Right. Spoiler alert, guys. There's no way to review this movie without
Without
giving some
spoiling
kind
it.
of spoiler.
No, 'cause I mean,
Especially the ending.
It starts off, especially the ending.
Especially the ending.
So the first hour was my favorite part of the entire film just because of how the whole thing was directed, the whole thing was written, how fast-paced it was. But basically this young adult male, he sees an opportunity to get his sister a job, his dad a job, his mom a job, working for this rich family and exploiting their ignorance to what he's doing in order to do that, and not having them be his sister or his mom or his dad, but just people that just happen to be people he know and they know. And that whole hour setup, I would say, meeting the family, meeting the characters, and how he gets his way with that, and they get their way, and how genius they are, that was my favorite part.
No, definitely. It was a great part. It's not my favorite part of the movie, but I love that first act. And one of the things about the first part of this movie that I found so interesting was all the nuances, where they built so much tension and nothing happened. It's one of those movies where, it wasn't like any slasher killers or anything, but some of the scary moments are like, are they going to get caught? Are they not going to get caught? When they're sneaking around the house, when they're trying to get the other employees fired so that they can, again, the name of the movie is Parasite. So, quote unquote, they're parasites. They're going to be leeching off of this family. And I've never seen another movie that I can remember where you build tension without any real danger other than them just getting caught. It was super cool. So I
It was
enjoyed
almost like a heist film, but
Yeah.
they weren't really heisting money. They were taking advantage of these people.
Well, interestingly, parts of the movie, it feels like a horror movie.
Right.
It feels, because I know that the filmmaker is inspired by Hitchcock movies, especially the voyeuristic feeling of families watching another family from a distance or creeping behind corners, and that felt like a horror movie, but the movie is fundamentally about classist issues
Right.
and greed. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it was one of those things where I've never been experienced suspense when nothing's really happening. What's the danger? The danger is just them getting caught. But again, them getting caught and them trying to, manipulate themselves and get themselves into this position, that was a very intense part of the movie. So I enjoyed it.
And it was so like they're taking advantage of these people. And we look at it from a moral standpoint, you're like, oh, that's messed up, but it's done in such an entertaining, such a clever comedic way that you can't help but have a huge smile on your face. I know I did. And especially when they are setting up the original housekeeper with
The peaches.
yes, the peaches, that she has TB and she's coughing because she has allergic reaction to peaches.
And
They're
the
trying to
blood.
convince the mom that she has TB, and they give the dad. I mean, if you watch it, you know what we're talking about. But they're going through it. They talk about it, and then it's happy as they're talking about it, and then they go back and they talk about it, and then it happens.
Right.
But she coughs into a napkin. They're trying to convince the mom, and so the kids tell the dad, here's extra cherry on top, basically. The hot sauce packet.
Right.
Pours it as the blood to show the mom. And it's just so awesome with the way the music's going, the score that matches with that. And as the mom is walking, that matches with the score. That was one of my favorite scenes where he picks up the napkin and he shows the mom. And
one of the best sequences
awesome.
by far of 2019. One of the best.
That was super
Really.
cool. Then that's about half of the movie. I would say this is 2 movies. Then we get to the second part of the
then it
movie.
just flips, right? I mean, not flips, but it just like, first it slows down extremely.
Right. And then they're celebrating, and I'm like, typical people in general, where you find a little bit of success and now you letting it go to the head. They're going to the pizza shop where they were flipping boxes for before, and now they're ordering, expensive pizzas or whatever. And they're,
Getting drunk on
wealthy
expensive people's booze.
Yeah, like
They're in their living room because the wealthy people go on a camp out.
Right.
They have these 2 kids. and the son is like 10 or 11, and they completely dote, typical family. The youngest gets all the attention or whatever. They dote on this boy, give him whatever he wants. He wants to go on a camp out. So they make this big old event about they're going to be gone. And so this family, who we know are a family, but the rich family don't know, they're partying in their living room, drinking their booze. So you're making a huge mess because they figure we got nothing but time. We'll clean this up later.
Right.
And
then
interesting things ensue from that point.
it was like the movie stopped on a dime. All of a sudden, you hear the doorbell ring, and it's the maid that they got fired. And it's one of those things where I instantly know this is not going to end well. Do not let her in.
Oh, yeah.
And if anything bothered me about the movie, it was just that one part. I know I got this lady fired. I'm the new housekeeper. Mind you, we're here, and we're, drinking their booze, tearing up
It's
the
raining,
house.
she's
It's
bruised
just,
and bloodied.
Why
would you let her in?
Why would you let her in? I'm not letting her in whatsoever.
So, I wondered that same thing. The easy answer is because that's where the story needed to go.
Plot.
Because when she comes in, we learn all this other new thing about her husband and what's going on.
Right.
But the other thing you can look at it is once that family got those jobs and now they're working for those people and they're drinking their booze, and like you said, they get a little bit and they take it too far. Mm-hmm. They now have all that pride and all that ego to think, who is she to come into our establishment? We'll see what she wants and we'll send her on her way. And even when they're following her because she forgot something, she has to go get it real quick. She got kicked out when she got fired, didn't have a chance to get this one thing. That's what she tells them.
Right.
She's following her like, well, you better get that and get out of it. Right? They had that power go to their heads, and they thought, like, you give them a little bit, like an inch, and they're taking it a mile. That's just the only justification I could think of.
Right. I mean, I get it. And, to your point, my favorite shot of the movie is the next one where she says, I forgot something. And then when you go down to the basement, you see her against a wall trying to, like, open up and do, like, what is she doing?
You say a horror element. That was a horror element where she's just sitting there.
That was scary.
Like, so creepy looking.
I went into
Trying
this
to
movie
push it against the wall.
knowing nothing. So I'm like, what is she, a zombie? Or what's going on? Because
Yes.
she's like against the wall.
It was scary. Oh, yeah, it was definitely scary.
But that scene when you're following her down the tunnel, and you can speak on the cinematography more than we can. Like, I don't know what's that called, but it's like maybe it's just a hand cam when you're following that from that perspective. Steady cam.
I would say I think I don't remember offhand, but I think that they were doing a tracking shot with a stead cam.
Okay.
The guy was holding the thing on a
So he has like a harness on.
Yeah, the harness on.
So that can stay stabilized.
Yeah.
Right. So they're following her down, and I'm thinking, what's down in this basement? I was like, what's down in this basement? And didn't it take like forever to get down to the basement? I'm like, how deep is this tunnel, man? How deep is this bunker?
It seemed like the same depth as the fugitive
You know-
when they're going through those little like irrigation pipes.
Yeah.
Dude, it took forever to get down there. And then, spoiler alert, guys.
Big
Spoiler
spoiler.
alert. Big spoiler alert. You guys know how we do it. But when you get down there, what do they find? What do they find?
They find the housekeeper's husband, severely malnourished, severely dehydrated, and starved, living under the rich family's house.
In a bunker.
In a bunker.
That they did not know existed.
And he had been controlling the lights, yeah?
Yes, he didn't be
And
controlling the
he'd
lights.
been, like, pressing it, like...
To actually, and he did it out of
He'd be,
respect.
he'd be watching the dad go up the stairs, and it's like a sensor.
Yeah.
And the dad must have just always thought, like, cool house. And the biggest point to understand this is that the original housekeeper, she was the housekeeper of the original owner who built the home. He was a big, famous architect. And so he had built that bunker. I guess at that time, it was wartime or whatever, dangerous times. They wanted to have bunkers so that they were safe in case different parts of Korea were attacked.
Well, because they're always afraid of being going to war with North Korea, and Kim Jong-il is always threatening with nuclear weapons. So that's why all the rich people have those bunkers. I guess that's what I got from it anyway.
Yeah, so she knows that this bunker's here, and so when the house gets sold to the new rich family, she doesn't tell them about it. She gets her husband in there, and he's been living there not because he's her prisoner, because they have no money. They are in debt with the loan sharks. They have no money to provide him a house, and so he stays down there. She would sneak him food every once in a while. And he was happy and content down there. I mean, he had made that his home.
Now, here's one of the things that and I'm not going to even take any credit for this, but I heard another reviewer saying, the grass is always greener on the other side, and be careful what you wish for kind of thing. No matter how poor or bad you think your situation is, somebody's situation is worse. So here they got this housekeeper fired to take her job because they thought she's living the high life, and because she, not knowing that, even though you guys were underground technically because they had like a basement apartment, at least you weren't actually underground, malnourished, hiding because you were in so much debt that the loan sharks were looking for you. Yeah, you guys were in debt, but at least you had each other and you were flipping, making pizza boxes, and you didn't have to be, you were in such crushing debt that you had to basically become a prisoner, because they were a prisoner. He was a prisoner down there. You know what I mean? Like, he could never pay back that debt. By the way, in the comments, let us know. I don't know if we have anybody from Korea watching. Both guys went in debt because of cake shops. You know what I mean? Is it that hard to run a cake shop?
Is that hard to have baked goods?
Apparently. Don't open a cake
Well,
shop.
obviously
Cake
it
shop
was
in
the
Korea.
same cake shop, right? Because they
Apparently,
both
yeah.
lost their jobs.
And
Now,
man,
did you pick up any more from that? It wasn't anything that Mr. Kim, the main family's dad, had invested in, right? He was just a worker there.
He was just a worker there, but you see, I think a lot of the movie has to do with metaphors,
Right.
and that bunker, it's a metaphor for class. I mean, that's watching it. That's why I had in mind that they're the lower class, so they're underneath the ground, never able to be above the upper class, who are the rich family, living upstairs. That's what I took from it, and that's why I think that so there's a scene where the father. So there's the Parks, and then there are the Kims.
Right.
The Parks are the wealthy family, and the Kims are the main. They're the main
Probably should
family.
at the beginning.
Probably at the beginning.
Characters.
See, let the professional talk. We're all over the place.
So the father, the Kim patriarch, I guess that's what you want to call him.
Right.
He's speaking to the husband of the old housekeeper. And he's like, "Why don't you want to leave here?" He's like, "Well, I like it here," and I think it's a thing of he's comfortable where he is. Yes, he's lower class, but he feels safe in this world, the safe world that he is in,
Right.
and. What, I mean, did you take anything from it? Like anything else from that?
Well, it's also as if, so let's go to Titanic real quick, where you have the different levels of the steerage and you have the different classes and the bigger rooms. You know, when they're escaping off the boat, no one cared about the steerage, the lowest class. They wanted to get the rich people and the middle class off first. They even closed the gates so that they wouldn't cause foot traffic.
Right.
When you have this lower class in the basement and the rich family, the Parks don't even know about it, that's a metaphor for life or real life, where the high class, the middle class, they don't want to know about what the lower class is doing. They don't really care because they don't want to have to humanize that, and they don't want to have to attach emotions to it. So the fact that they didn't even know what was going on in their own basement, I think is a metaphor for life, where those rich people, they don't know, they don't want to know, they don't care. And that's a stereotype, but I mean, I think that's the message being sent there.
I think one of the things that we kind of glossed over earlier was when the son says, you know, she smells, and we're talking about Mr. Kim, smells just like
the subway.
Mrs. Kim. I'm not he doesn't know the Kim, but he knows just like our maid, and just like Kevin, who they gave him the American name Kevin, the English tutor. They all smell the same. And at first I thought he was talking about odor, because remember all the bug smoke came in the house at the beginning. But no, they were just talking about the smell is poverty. Like, people who are out, they walk everywhere or ride bikes everywhere. So you got to think about, in and of itself, that's going to make you sweaty. Plus, if you've ever ridden a subway, I'm from New York, I know what it's like. You know, Savannah hated it the first time she did it, bro, because she's like, God, you know, guys have no boundaries. And it's like, babe, this is how it is. You're shoulder to shoulder with people, and you know, if you don't like it, you don't take the subway. You know, so for them, they just in my opinion, it's almost like they looked at them not just as a lower class, but as a subspecies, because the dad was almost disgusted with the smell, or disgusted with the and that comes to play later on in the movie or whatnot. I'm like, you can smell pour on them, or you can smell the subway. How bad could it be? And you kept saying that the patriarch, Mr. Kim, would smell himself when he's driving him around, because he was the driver, and he's like, I mean, I'm sure he's thinking to himself, I don't smell anything. What are they talking
He
about?
didn't notice anything.
You know?
And they have this whole craziness where they have the family in the basement, and the maid just wants to get her husband out, but really she wants to be able to take back, I think, the house and keep him there, because she has nowhere to take him. So they keep switching power back and forth while the Parks aren't there. At one point, the old housemaid and her husband that's been living there, they have the upper hand, and they have a video of the fact that the Kims are a family, and they're going to use that against them and lose their job, or they got to get out. And it goes back and forth. And I don't want to get too much into that, because I feel like the essence of this film in the second half is like what you're talking about, and what you're talking about is the distinction between classes. And you have Mr. Kim. At one point, the family comes back home early. Like, everyone saw that coming. They come home early, and they have taken care of we'll call them the basement people, locked them up, and the
beaten them.
Oh yeah, brutalized them.
Brutally.
The Kims are underneath this big, huge coffee table, such a thing. And at one point, the kid, he didn't get his camp out because it rained out, so he wants to camp out in the yard. They have a nice, beautiful yard, this big old window you can see. And the parents, they dote on him, so they say, that's fine. I'm just going to sleep on the couch and keep an eye on him so he can do his little camp out in his teepee. And so as they're doing that, there's a little bit of conversation going on, and you have the Kims underneath listening to it. And that's when the dad brings up the smell. I can't stand his smell. He says, sometimes he crosses the line with his conversation, but that smell is just so hard. It's like that it's like that poor smell, that Subway smell that the wife brings up.
Right.
And then there's a scene, and his mom's there watching it with us. She's getting very uncomfortable because there's a love scene, we'll say, but they don't do the full act.
That wasn't much of a love scene. That was more of a fondling scene than anything.
And he had a great point. I want you to share what your point was of showing that scene, because your mom's like, "Why did they got to show that? I got my son here. I don't want to see that." Mm-hmm. But you had a great take on why you feel they had that scene.
Well, it's really interesting that they didn't have a scene like that with the main characters. Right. The only thing we get to that is just some light displays of affection between the father and the mother of the Kim family, but we don't get a scene like that with them specifically. Right. But it's kind of, so the way I watched it was, they're these wealthy people, very successful, but the scene plays out like I found that there's very little love between them. Right. It's more of lust, and they're just fulfilling their own desires. Right. And there's so much intensity that it's like, wow, like, do they actually love each other? Because the father asks the Kim dad asks the Park dad, he's like, do you love your wife? And he's slightly offended by it, and he's like, well, yes, if you could call it love. Right. It's as if that classic, the rich guy looks at his family and his wife as trophies. Right. That's what they are to him. But really interestingly about that is they have a shot of the father, and he's just like beside himself listening to them as they're going about this, and it's just brewing in his head that they just insulted his smell. This is what they really think about him. But I think it's more of, he knows what this man has, and he feels like he doesn't maybe appreciate it, or maybe he doesn't deserve it, maybe he uses it too. Right. And did you guys get that?
I interpreted it differently.
You interpreted it.
I think that my interpretation was, this was the first time they started showing you the cracks in the armor, so to speak, because up until this point, you don't feel that anything that has happened to the Parks is justified. Like, they're nice people, and maybe he's offended by the smell, but they haven't really done anything, so you feel like they're victims. But then you realize the hypocrisy, because earlier, for instance, the underwear scene or whatnot, right? He was like, what kind of person leaves the underwear behind if they're, in the middle of that or whatever? But then when he's intimate with his wife, he tells her, oh, yeah, put on those underwear. That'll really turn me on. What? And then what does she ask for in return?
Drugs.
Get me drugs. Whoa. Two things that you were adamant against that earlier was bad, but now all of a sudden when you guys are intimate and obviously
no one's watching.
When nobody's watching, you're just as bad as the lower class people you quote unquote look down on. You know what I mean? So I think that was the first time showing the audience, like, look, the Parks aren't perfect either, and some of the things that are happening to them, they deserve it. You know what I mean?
And they have the money to hide all that imperfection. Everyone has imperfections, but one thing you had mentioned to me before we recorded this, I thought was really poignant, was the fact that in that love scene, it's them getting both of their pleasures done, but not really sharing love. Right. It's, this is what I want, and this is what I want. And to your point, the drugs and the panties or whatever, this is what we want, but it's not a love type thing. And so I just thought that was really interesting, and it showed kind of their true side. And I feel like even Mr. Kim underneath, you don't really see too much from Mr. Kim, Mrs. Kim, but Mr. Kim underneath realized, because he was praising these people. These are great people. This is a good person to work for. Realizing, like you said, they have chink in the armor. They're not perfect. They are more selfish than he had realized. Right. And then that smell really offended him. Going back a little bit in the movie, there's a scene before the family comes home, before the housekeeper comes over, where they're drinking, and the mom calls the dad, the Kim family, a cockroach, joking around. And he gets so mad that he grabs her shirt, and he's about to punch her. And the kids are, the drunks, so they're kind of laughing off, but they're like, whoa.
For a moment, it's serious. He's quiet. His face is just...
Yeah, he looks like he's going to do it. And it's like, this guy is a very nice guy. He's a very controlled guy. But he has his limits. And when he's called a cockroach, when maybe, the mirror is shown on him and he sees himself for what, class-wise, what he really is, he doesn't want to hear that. He gets almost violent. And so that plays in later on in the movie. Jumping forward, we have this birthday party for the son. So before that, there's a huge thunderstorm. Before that, they're trying to get out of the house and not be caught. So there's a whole bunch of nonsense going on, and the Kims are trying to get out of there, not get fired, and get out of the house. They just committed possible murder by brutalizing this other family. They got locked in the basement. Everything's going bad. They get out of there. It's raining so much that when they get to their house, which is basically a basement of itself, they left the window open. It flooded the entire thing. And it's not just water, it's sewage water.
Sewage water, right.
And
Their toilet is just
it's
blowing
exploding.
up black sludge.
And, there's so much we're going to miss out. But talking about the daughter for a second, Jessica, she's probably, in my opinion, the smartest one in the family.
Right.
Very, very at ease being this kind of like manipulative person and clever person. She has no problem sitting on top of that toilet while it's spewing out, holding down the seat down. Smoking. There you go. Don't get her phone, but she's smoking, and she's getting all this feces all over her. But it's almost as if she's been there before, right? She's accepted where she's at, and she's trying to make her situation better. But for Mr. Kim, he sees once again his little world that he had in poop, literally, and destroyed, and he doesn't know what to do. They go to a shelter. They're called to go back to work overtime to work for this son's birthday party, because for the Parks, that's the most important thing. For Kim, he just went through this horrible experience, and now he's already sensitive about the smell. Now he's got water soaked in poop on his skin, hasn't had a chance to shower, and he has to go to work, and then you have this craziness that happens.
Well, I think that, back to what Evan said earlier, one of the things that again, classism, and talking about the differences and the disparities between both classes. Something that turns out to be a tragedy for the Kims, where they lose their home. I mean, Kevin, our main character, if you could say that, all he really is able to recruit from the home is a rock that he gets earlier, and it's symbolic of getting good luck and wealth. Exactly. His sister's able to get some cigarettes, and they end up having to spend the night in a shelter where the Kims are. Oh, they're praising all the rain that happened the day before because it got rid of some of the smog, and now it's a beautiful day, and they can have a picnic and you know what I mean? Like, just seeing how one basic incident or one basic everyday occurrence can be spelled tragedy for some people and can be, a blessing for others. And they even mention that in the car while he's driving Mrs. Kim around, and you can see the look on his face while she's talking about how much of a blessing it is that the storm happened because it cleared out all the smog, so now they can have this picnic. And in his mind, I'm sure he's thinking to himself, we just lost everything.
Yeah, I just lost
it. You know what I mean? So it just shows you the dualism there between how, something as simple as, and I forgot who I heard mention this, but something, I think it was Chris Stuckman, Jeremy John mentioned it in his review, where something as simple as when he was a kid, winter, and I've never thought about this until he said it. He used to love winter, he used to love when it snowed or whatever, he loved the Christmas time, and then a friend of his, when he was really young, told him, yeah, but what about, you love it when it snows, but what about all the homeless people that have to be out in the street and face the snow that way? It's something pretty to look at and to have snowball fights, but depending where you are in society and what your status is, what may be a blessing to you, snowball fight, school's closed because it's snowing. To other people, they may be dying in the streets because they're in the middle of a blizzard. So that was a really good point he made about that. So I saw the same thing there with that rainstorm. But man, a powerful movie, a lot of symbolism.
I think important. Now I have to watch it again,
right?
But the interesting thing about The Rock to the Kim family is that this thing's like symbolizes wealth and good luck for them and prosperity. I have to rewatch the movie to confirm this.
Right.
But in the scene when their apartment is completely flooded, that rock is floating.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's floating, and the implication there is that it's a fake. And the funny thing is on the outside, this thing is symbolic for wealth to them.
I didn't even
but
think
on the
about
inside,
that. Rocks don't float. Why would a rock
hollow.
Float? Yeah, it's hollow.
On the inside. So what they see as the dream is fake.
You know what? I didn't even think about that.
I didn't even think about it either.
Wow.
Wow, good eye there. Good eye. See, a prop guy, somebody that works on says, wait a minute, rocks don't float. And you caught that. And that's probably something that they put intentionally in the movie for us to catch. But, if you don't have a sharp eye, I didn't catch it. Sorry, guys, I'm not that sharp. I didn't catch it.
And not just that, but also later on when all the, crap hits the fan, so to speak, you have that rock being used as a weapon against Kevin. And so sometimes that thing that you cling on to, that wealth that you're hoping for, it's going to bite you in the butt. Right. You hear about people, these get-rich schemes or these pyramid schemes. It only helps a very small percentage, and it ruins people's lives, that quick wealth. I mean, there's so much symbolism here. I want to talk about the ending, though. So you have all this, bloodbath, so to speak, at this party. Yep. Mr. Kim's had enough. He's getting tired of Mr. Park, and he's seen him in a different way. The smell and whatnot. So they have this whole thing where they're going to dress up as Native Americans. and they have these headdresses on, and they're going to do this whole fake attack thing, and the son's going to be the hero and all this kind of stuff. And Mr. Kim would rather be anywhere but there because his whole life is probably still soaking wet, and he hasn't had a chance to fix it yet. He's got to be here because he desperately needs those extra dollars he's getting paid.
Right.
He needs that job. And Mr. Park says something. Mr. Kim asks him again, do you love your wife? Mr. Park gets really mad about that question again, and he says, listen, you're getting paid to do a job. He separates that. He makes that division right then and there. Mm-hmm. And that is all that he can handle. The guy from the basement survives their attack on him. He comes out, and he is completely psychotic. Face is all bloody because he's trying to get out, hitting his head. And he's got a knife, and he's ready just to attack Jessica, one of the family members that attacked him. Right. And then you just have all this stabbing and killing. Mr. Kim comes in and kills Mr. Park. And you're like, why in the world did he go that crazy in one night from killing Mr. Park to praising him? And I think this is where the big discussion comes from at the end of this movie. Why did he make that huge leap to being willing to kill him and being conscious of it? It wasn't like he was drunk or something. He was conscious of what he was doing. And I feel like what Mr. Park said about his smell was everything encapsulated for what the stuff he's gone through his life. Everything that he said it was just so crushing to him that he couldn't handle it, that he portrayed Mr. Park as everyone that's offended him, and he just had to eliminate him. Now, there's other things in there, like his daughter is on the floor dying from the stabbing, and all Mr. Park cares about is the son, because the wife had said that in 15 minutes we're going to get to the hospital, he's going to die from a seizure, even though he just fainted. There's so much going on, but you see what happens when someone gets pushed, who maybe is not that violent, when they get to that point of exhaustion or whatever. But I thought it was kind of a stretch that he went to murder.
I didn't think so because his wife was murdered. She was pushed down the stairs, right?
Right.
Yeah, she was pushed down the stairs and she smashed her head.
No,
so.
not that. Not
the
Mr.
father.
Kim
Okay,
going to
father,
murder. I
that
thought
makes
that
sense.
was
You found that was a stretch.
just a little bit.
Well, that was a stretch, and 2 was a stretch of Kevin going down there with the rock to kill him.
Right.
That was the implication. He has this rock. He's going to go and kill the housekeeper and her husband.
Right.
So I think a lot of them at the end, when they're at their most desperate, betrayed who you thought they were, or maybe of who they thought that they were in the end. But as far as the father, the Kim father killing the Park patriarch,
right.
I mean, in his defense, he didn't know that was his daughter. He didn't know that was his wife. He didn't know that was his son. All he saw was his son is having a seizure, what they think is a trauma-induced seizure, and all they can see is that their family too is dying right in front of their eyes. That's what they see. So, I mean, I think that the ending again is another metaphor for the parasite killing its host, of which one family killed a parasite on the other family, killed that family.
Right.
And was it believable? Maybe not in that sense. But then again, nothing. I mean, it never was going to end right for any of the families. And the most interesting thing is that the Kim family ruined both families' lives. They ruined the housekeeper's life, and they ruined the Park family's life with their actions of being con artists and being thieves and getting a lot of people fired just for them.
Right.
So, in the end, was it deserved? Absolutely. And was the father's turn so crazy that it's hard to say it's to his character? Probably.
What I found most interesting there is that two worlds collided, because up until this point, the Parks have been walking on water, so to speak. They're, removed from any violence, from anything bad happening. They got this, but now
the wife is super sensitive. Super sensitive.
The wife, exactly. Their life is so cushy, but now, through whether it's a fault of their own, the bottom line is they're a part of that system where you've got 95% of the wealth and 5% of the population's hand. There's a lot more poor people than there are affluent people in the world, bottom line. So how that will still affect you, because this was a quarrel between two poor people, and ultimately it still ended up taking Mr. Park's life, who was an affluent person. So no matter, like you said, we don't even want to think about those people, we don't want to look, it's still going to affect you one way or another. You can turn a blind eye to it, but it was kind of like we were talking about in Joker when we saw that, we are part of the system creates a lot of these mentally ill people and these mass shooters, because instead of getting them the help they need, what did they do in the 80s? They closed down all the mental institutions. People were looking for help. So I took it the same thing. Like, listen, these people that whether or not you realize were parasites and quote unquote were sucking off of you or whatnot, but because you're so affluent and you're so rich and you can't even be bothered to pay attention to what's happening in your own house. Because I'm sorry, if somebody's living in my house, it wasn't like he was there for a month. It wasn't like he was there for a year. He was there for 4 years and did not know that this dude was living in his basement. How does that happen? And even, I found it interesting that it wasn't like they were the best sleuths, okay? They were under the table and he's there having an intimate moment with his wife, and he didn't notice that they were, a couple feet away from him. His daughter's in the room, and she didn't notice that Kevin was under the bed. Like, you know what I mean? They're so nonchalant because they can't even be bothered to look down beneath where the people, are down in the gutter, so to speak. So I saw it as like, look, you're part of this system, and because there's so many poor people that rely on you one way or another, because you offend them and because you honestly, like, let's be honest, he's paying them peanuts, you know what I'm saying? And he's so quick to dismiss and fire people. Think about that chauffeur that got fired because he didn't even bother asking them, hey, was this there? It could have been an accident or whatever. He just dismissed them. This is this guy's whole revenue stream. This is how he supports his family. The maid who had been working for him for 4 years. Okay, she's got TB. Even if she had TB, is that how you treat somebody with TB? Just fire them. The person got sick. You forget about your 4 years of service. Forget about it. Get rid of them.
Well, again, her biggest concern, and she didn't even tell the father, what happened. Her biggest concern was that she was going to be humiliated when the father found out that she hired someone with tuberculosis and how it could affect her kids. Mm-hmm. And someone even laughs like tuberculosis isn't even a thing anymore. Right. But it doesn't matter because they were able to bamboozle her and fool her. Right. I don't really have a lot of problems with this movie. I have just a few small things. First of all, I would like to know, how did their decision affect the previous driver? We don't get any, close to that type of story. All we hear is, oh, he's young, he'll get another job. And the other thing is, they mentioned so much about the smell, but like to your point, they're 2 or 3 feet away. You think they would have noticed that smell. There's certain smells that drive me crazy too. I'm going to notice if it's a few feet away. So that was a small little plot hole, not a big deal. The thing I loved about this movie, it was very, very smart. And it was very original. It was very unique. But it was interesting. I'm not sure this is how a lot of Korean films are, but it was interesting how it was basically 2 different films, 2 different styles mashed together. Almost like Tarantino style.
Yes.
But maybe not as meshed as a Tarantino movie where it kind of goes back and forth. This, very much that first hour, is a different movie than the last hour and a half. Both very good. I prefer the first half more. I know you guys, I think, said you prefer the second half more. Right. But those just a few of my small issues.
It actually reminds me a lot of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because, for the first 2/3 of the movie, nothing happens. It's just great Quentin Tarantino dialogue and interactions with people. But character building. But that
World
last
building.
30, 40 minutes, wow. So, it's a love that.
Yeah.
That's a good point, the last 30 minutes. And speaking of Tarantino, this guy's got the Red Apple t-shirt on.
Hey,
love it.
Had to point that out.
Yes.
Don't come here empty-handed.
We love the shirt game for sure. So let's go ahead and give this a grade because we're sure no one's still listening because this is a longer review. But I'll go ahead and start. I'm going to easily give this an A, which is very impressive for me at least that I gave it so high because I'd never seen a Korean film before. I've gotten used to subtitles with Indian films, so that wasn't a problem. But I had no idea what was going into. And plus, usually Best Picture winners for me are very underwhelming. They don't live up to that hype. And so it was really nice to see after all the hype that I still really enjoyed this. So for me, easily an A.
We're looking at you driving Miss Daisy and Green Book. We're looking at you. Oh,
Shakespeare in Love.
Shakespeare in Love. Come on. For me, we'll let the expert go last. For me, I have it an A-. You know what? I was angry when Avengers Endgame did not win Best Picture. I know you clown me, but I told you.
Best Picture, Best Script.
Come on, they got snubbed. They didn't win anything. How does the biggest movie of all time, $2 billion, not win anything? But
it won the fans.
It won the fans. You know what I mean? And even when my boy Tarantino, you know what I mean? I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but after watching this, I understand this movie absolutely deserved it, and wow, it was impressive. So for me, it's an A-. Like I said, the only nitpick I have with the movie is those small little nuances where, man, like you said, what happened to the other family? You know what I mean? And are the Parks really that much of a villain to deserve what happened to them? Because there was no real. It's like everybody's a villain in this movie. There
They
was
were
no
living
real,
in their own world, and
like,
for the
did you
most
feel
part,
bad for
they
Mr.
were-
Park when he got stabbed?
I personally did.
Did you? I didn't.
I didn't feel like it was justified.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think most people did feel bad for him, and I get it.
Did.
Because he's a rich guy, and you find out that he's really a scumbag, and that not a scumbag, but
Not
that
a scumbag.
Well,
he's
he
just
looks
he's
down on
into
other
himself.
people
He's
for-
into his
right.
wealth. He's allowed his wealth. He looks down on his wife because she really can't do anything. She's a pretty face, and he
Right.
understands that he married her. But I feel like he feels like in his own world that gives him a little bit of a higher level of class than she has. I don't like that about him, but I don't think he deserved to get stabbed, for crying out loud.
Okay. Well, again, A-, but I will give it its respect. It did deserve Best Picture, and congratulations to the director. I forget his name.
Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho.
Yep.
He had also. I've never seen Snowpiercer. Just because of this, I'm gonna watch Snowpiercer.
I've never seen that, but it's apparently it's a sequel to Willy Wonka. Like the argument's been made about that movie.
Does he have something to do with Snowpiercer?
Yeah,
Yes.
he was a director as well.
He directed that.
No way.
Yeah, this dude made
'Cause
like.
I remember when that movie came out, there was a lot of critical acclaim for it. It's got
Yeah.
our boy Captain America in it.
Captain America.
Wow.
Cap, baby.
Cap.
So what do you think, Evan? Give us the professional.
And you can
opinion.
grade it by stars, by numbers.
By numbers.
We do letter grades, whatever you want to do.
We're teachers, so we do letter grades, but we'll take whatever you give us.
I'll give it a solid A+ with a smiley face on the side.
Oh,
Ooh,
smiley face on the
I
side.
give it a smiley face, and I would say that a lot of people have to understand that I think I think Roma really paved the way for a movie like this to be recognized by the Academy, because Roma was the first case where a foreign film was being recognized. I mean, I was invited to see it at the Dolby Theater. That's a massive theater. All the guilds, all the union people, they all go there to see the new movies. And there was a big following that movie that, hey, look at this foreign film what's the word I'm looking for? It was seen by this Western audience, and people were looking at it and they were acknowledging it, that, hey, our movies, sometimes foreign films do it better. Sometimes international foreign filmmakers do it better than we do. And with Roma, that was certainly the case. And with Parasite, that too was the case, because, okay, I love Joker. I saw the movie 7 times.
Right.
In the theater.
Woo.
All right.
I only saw it 3 times.
7 times, all right? I loved it. Did I think it deserved Best Picture? Absolutely not. The Irishman loved it, saw it in the theaters.
Thank you.
Didn't no one? Yeah, I love that.
A lot of
movie. It's
people were like,
amazing.
"Oh,
They're like, oh,
what?
it's
Are you kidding me?"
Scorsese doing Scorsese. No,
And it's fabulous.
yeah, Scorsese. It's not Scorsese doing Scorsese. He has done Hugo.
Right.
He has done Gangs of New York. He's done Kings of Comedy, not crime movies.
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is, I think that with Parasite, we acknowledge, the Western audiences acknowledge that, hey, a foreign filmmaker can do it better than we can, and that they should be rewarded for that. We should see that, Hollywood does it okay, but sometimes other people do it better than we do, and they deserve those Oscars, absolutely.
You're right. No,
It deserved
I agree.
Best Picture, Best Foreign Language Film, and Best Original Screenplay.
Evan, I gotta tell you, man, we've seen some movies in this last year that, if I'm thinking about top 10 movies, period, or top 20 movies, period, I mean, there's this Indian film, Gully Boy, absolutely amazing, won all kinds of awards as well. And there's another movie that we saw as educators that really touched us, 3 Idiots. It's on Netflix, man. You should check it out. But yeah, these are Bollywood films and Indian films. But yeah, there's other industries out there, and film industry, I should say, and they do it well as well. And they deserve that kind of recognition so that, globally we can start, appreciating those movies. Because a lot of times we want to see them, and
Absolutely.
Parasite came back to the movie theater because it won the Oscar, but do you ever even remember it hitting the movie theaters here in the United States?
I
don't remember it.
personally do, because I spent a lot of time at the movie theater watching movies, and I saw the poster, and I remember a few guys I watched on YouTube had mentioned it early on in its run, how they really, really enjoyed it. Did I hear anyone say, I think it's going to win Best Picture? Absolutely not. But I heard a lot of people say, hey, this is actually a really good film. Going back to your point, almost like that stigma here in the West where our films are the best and nothing else. Before we started doing Indian films, I didn't know how good those films were. And so when we have movies that come out that are horrible sequels, like let's say Sonic 2 comes out in a few years.
Hey, I liked Sonic 1.
I did too. But I'm saying, they do a sequel, it's going to be horrible.
Of course.
There's other films out there like a Parasite, like a Gully Boy, like a Roma that we're probably not going to get the light of day. We're going to go take our kids to Sonic 2 for crying out loud. That's what I'm trying to say. But I mean, these films are strong. I'm glad you guys liked it. I love this film. I did not think I would because the hype was so high, and that's hard to have it live up to it. But it was a whole lot of fun. But there's our review. We hope you enjoyed having Evan on the channel. We're going to try to get him as much as possible.
Thank you for joining us.
If you stuck around the entire time, we appreciate that so much. Don't forget to check out some other videos. They're not all this long, but they may not be all this awesome either because we have the expert on hand.
Well, when I'm in there, you know it's going to be long. They look at the thumbnail. Wait a minute. How much time do I got to burn? Gabe's on there? Nah, that's at least 30 minutes, man. The guy to never be cool.
Can't do it. I recommend just put the headphones on, get some work done or whatever. That's what I do with some longer videos. But with that all being said, thanks for checking this out. And until next time.
Later.
Later.